Hi, JL. Let's see. Say something. JL, say something. I can't hear you. Let's see.
There we go. Hello.
No, I can hear you. Hi. You guys, you're early.
Yes, a
Did,
little bit.
did you have chapel? No, today's Tuesday. You don't have chapel on Tuesday. So what do you have right before this class?
Another math class.
Oh, exciting. So is that with oh, I can't think of her name. Mrs. Jones, not Jones.
Miss McKinnon.
Miss McKinnon, yeah. She used to be Jones. That's why I was having trouble thinking of her last name. She's been married a long time, but I forgot. Anthony is connecting. So you have math for elementary teachers and then this class right after it.
Yes.
That's pretty funny. Oh. And we're actually gonna do there'll be one assignment that'll be the same in this class as in that one. So you can just submit the same assignment for, oh no, it was from your the fall semester class.
Okay.
And if you still have those assignments saved, you're perfectly welcome to submit them again. I don't care.
Okay.
So it's like where you had to like demonstrate the base 10 or the base 5 and
Yes.
so if you've got those assignments saved or you can find them, back in last semester's work, it's perfectly fine to submit them again.
All right. Nice to know.
Anthony, are you there? If you are, can you turn on your camera and your mic? I see a name that says Anthony. One of the reasons I'm doing them again is because we do have Anthony who is a secondary major, so he would not ever have had or will ever have that, So, and Anthony, are you there? I know I can be heard because Jail's talking to me. So where are you from, Jail?
I'm originally from Ohio and I live in North Carolina when I am not at school.
Okay. Where in Ohio were you from?
Dayton.
Dayton. Oh, my sister lives in Cedarville.
Ah, yes.
Yeah. She's lived there for probably close to 50 years now.
Sorry, I was making lunch.
What's that?
I said I was making lunch.
Oh, you were making lunch? Oh, okay. Go ahead. Because we still don't even have it. Anthony's not on. I mean, he looks like he's on, but he's not responding. And Deshante's not here yet. Let's see. I don't know. I can probably text Anthony from within the course. See, let me find it. Okay, let's see. Nope, wrong one. Math disabilities. I've got a chat. Okay. So Anthony says he can't hear anything. Let's. Let's see. What time is it? Is it noon? It's just exactly noon. So hopefully Deshante will be here soon. All right. So what are we having for lunch today? Now that you've got your mouth full.
Um, Kettle chip potato chips and then a grilled cheese sandwich.
Okay. So are you not on the lunch plan or are you?
I am not.
You're not. Okay. So you're on your own, huh?
Yes.
Let's see. Oh, I know. I have Deshante's number. Let's see. Deshante. Okay. Um, with Anthony.
Hello.
Hello, I can hear you at least now.
Yeah, I
That's
got it now.
good. Can
I
you
got
turn
it.
the camera on?
Yeah, I got you. I just want to figure this out.
Okay.
Um, Hold on.
Look
Okay, there we go.
at that. I can actually see you. All right.
Mhm.
Yay. All right. Good. Now we're just waiting on Deshante. I just sent her a text. We'll see if she gets it. But we'll get started. I was learning a little bit about jail, so let me learn a little bit about you. Where are you from?
I'm actually from Sebastian, Florida.
Okay, I've heard of that. What's it close to?
Vero Beach,
Vero Beach.
Melbourne.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm from that area and everything. I grew up in that area, and then I went to a small school in South Georgia. Then I transferred here.
Okay. I knew you had transferred because I looked when I was looking at you in the other class that we took you out
Mhm,
of because I didn't know, I didn't know you at all. So I was trying to see if you were really ready for that class. That's kind
mhm,
of it's supposed to be as near the end of your special ed program as possible. And
mhm.
since you hadn't taken any special ed courses, I talked to Mrs. Spires and we decided that we moved you. But Deshante, can you turn your camera on so we can see you? So what made you want to go into special ed, Anthony?
I worked with special education students since I was in seventh grade, and then I actually have disabilities of my own.
Okay.
So I have dyslexia, memory process disorder, and speech impediment. So I was always in these type of like those type of meetings with like learning about that kind of stuff.
Hi, Deshante.
Hello.
Long time no see, at least in class, right?
Yes, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm well.
How is Marmalade?
He's good. He's actually right
Is he
here.
there? He's there. Oh, he
Yeah.
was he was my cat, and I found him and rescued him and gave him to Deshante. So for those of you who have no idea why we're talking about the cat,
Yes.
has he been doing good?
Yes. Oh man, so demanding, I tell you.
That's
So
a cat for you.
demanding. Uh-huh.
Well,
But he's good. Little fat boy.
come here. So this is one of my newest kittens.
Oh my gosh.
Isn't he cute?
Yes, what is his name?
His name is like Chuck E. Cheese. His name is
Mm,
Fuzz E. Ball.
Fuzzy.
He's
He's
so
so
cute.
handsome.
He's
Hi,
Hey, Deshante.
JL.
so yes. Hey, sweetie pie. So he's getting ready to go to his forever home fairly soon.
Hmm.
He weighs about 2.5 pounds. He has to be 3 before he can get neutered, and then he'll go to his forever home. So
Oh,
another couple weeks. But I've had
okay.
him since he was 2 weeks old. Started out bottle feeding him. I had 3 of them. I had Fur E-Ball, Fuzz E-Ball, and Ink E-Ball.
Thank you.
Inky Ball is down here. Let me see if I can get this so you can see him. There he is. Oops.
Oh,
Anyway, he's all black.
so cute.
I don't want to pick him up and disturb him because I want him to be peaceful for at least a little while we're having class. Okay. All right. Well, good. We're all here. Um, Next week, hopefully, if the weather cooperates, etc., we'll meet in class just for 1 week. Most of the time, we'll meet on Zoom. Um, one of the first assignments that you'll have, and if you looked at all, it's actually in week one's lesson, which is to learn how to give an individualized test called the key math test, which looks at somewhere around 10 to 12 different kinds of math skills. And you would use it to diagnose somebody who was having struggles with math. It's difficult to teach about a test and to show you how to use it and that kind of thing over Zoom. I've done it before during COVID when we had to, but I would much rather do that. And that's why we're meeting for the other class in person a good bit of the time, because for JL and, do you want me to call you Shawnee? I'm so used to calling you Deshante.
That's fine. Shani is just what I like use at work and stuff, so it's just common.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll try and change to Shawnee, but you've been Deshante for a while, and I don't know if I'm too old to change. You know, you can't teach me new tricks.
It's all right. I'll respond to either or. It's okay.
Okay, well, that's good. All right. Anyway, so then the other class that Anthony's not taking, so it'll be Jael and Shawnee, you guys are in 2 classes together with me. And Anthony's in one, and then Morgan. Do you guys know Morgan Wells? Okay, she's in the other one with you. So we'll see a fair amount of each other. But the other one is giving a battery of tests, a collection of tests to help diagnose if a person has dyslexia, has learning disabilities. And so we're going to meet in person on that, because we'll be talking about a lot of different tests. And we may occasionally, I may some weeks say, hey, next week we're just going to really be talking about evaluating the test, and let's just do that one over Zoom. So I may once in a while say, let's meet over Zoom, but most of the time we'll just meet in person on our Thursday class. But Tuesday, except for next week, which was supposed to be this week, we'll meet on Zoom. Next week we'll meet in person. I think it was, I said class 101, but anyway, it's whatever I said on your dashboard. I'll check too before I go. But there's only 3 classes in class, so we can't be real lost. If you get to class and you see me in a room, that's where we are. So, okay. Whoops, my kitties are deciding to wrestle on my lap. Interesting. All right, so let me pull up, let's see, share screen. It is hiding. There it is. Okay, share screen. I'm just going to pull up the syllabus and populate and kind of walk you through a few things. So you'll be a tiny, I think you're a tiny little blip over in the corner. But you won't see me much. So we're just going to look at share screen. So I have to, let's see, I think I can do, right. I think this is the course. Let's say share. Okay, yeah. It's in the, okay, come on. It's coming. It's thinking. I'm screen sharing. Oh, I have to sign in. Okay. Give me a minute here to give it decide. There, I'm signed in. Okay, good. Now it's letting me move down. So let's go to syllabus real quick for a minute here. Let's see. Okay. Oh, I'm in the wrong one. Okay, let me go. Let me move you. That was time before this. So let me go to fall. Actually, it was fall of 2020. So let's go to fall of 23, 24 instead. That says MAT 110. I don't want that. All right. I thought that I pulled up the right one. Obviously, I didn't. All right, home. Let's try again. Here we go. Now I'm getting to the right spot. All right, syllabus. So pull down. All right, so this builds on, to a large extent, what the elementary majors take in teaching math for elementary, math for elementary teachers and teaching math in the elementary, which JL told me she is taking right before this class. And Deshante, were you with me in teaching math? I don't think so. I think.
No, I had Miss Wendy,
Yeah.
or not Miss Wendy, Miss McKinnon when she came.
Mrs. McKinnon. Yeah, okay. I knew you were with me in class, but I didn't think it was math. I wasn't sure.
No, I had Miss Byers for math, actually. So yeah, I think it's when y'all were switching over.
Switching out, okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I was telling JL, because she was on first, that we're gonna do some of the exercises that you did in Math for Elementary Teachers. So I told her she could turn in her old assignments if she still had them, and the same is true for you. Sometimes if I only have elementary ed majors, I just leave that assignment out. We talk about it in class, but I don't have you do it. But because Anthony hasn't been exposed to it at all, and it won't hurt you to refresh your mind on it, we'll do that. It's not, that won't be a big part of the grade, but well, I'll explain why we're doing it in a little bit. But anyway, it covers methods of teaching math using a variety of techniques. It will emphasize multisensory techniques. That's the big thing, I think, that we're going to really emphasize in this course, because to a large extent, kids who struggle with math need more than what the regular math class can give them, or they'd be getting it in the regular math class. So we use a CAR method, which I'm going to talk about. I'll actually have it on a handout or a paper that's up in a minute, but it stands for concrete, for C, CRA, concrete, representational, and then abstract. So when you're teaching math or building skills, you always want to start with the concrete. You want to show them what this looks like with manipulatives. You want to lay out base 10 blocks, which some of this might not mean a lot to you, Anthony, but it will as we go along. And maybe it does. Did you ever use base 10 blocks when you were in school?
Actually, I can't remember, to be honest.
Okay,
It's been a long,
and that's perfectly fine.
it's been a long time and everything. I remember, sorry to cut you off and everything.
Oh, that's okay.
When I was like, I think when I was like 8, and when I had always be tested and everything, I think I did have the blocks and everything,
Okay.
but it always gave me like problems to do and everything when I always had to be tested for my dyslexia and everything.
Okay. All right. So you some of this may, come back to you as, oh, I did that when I was a kid. But
Yeah, probably.
the point being, we want to start off by showing them what we're talking about. In other words, just a real simple thing. If you're adding 7 plus 9, you're going to lay out 7 little individual blocks, and you're going to lay out 9 more individual blocks. But when you put them together, it becomes a strip of 10 and 6 little individual units. Okay. And you're showing them why, well, let's do 17 plus 9, and it would be 26. That 16 would turn into an extra strip, which would move over. And that's why we carry our 1, okay, when we're writing. So we're showing them with concrete things. And in this case, because we're going to be distance, concrete is going to be blocks on the screen. But you can actually, in your classroom, actually have real base 10 blocks that they can actually move and manipulate too, if you want. But you're wanting to show them the concept first. Next would be representational, which would be, if you guys remember, or hopefully you did this, when after you did it with concrete, you learned how to sketch it, and you made dots for the individual blocks, and then you would cross out 10 of them and turn it into a long. And so you're representing on paper what the blocks do. And then the third step, the last step, but sadly, this is where most math starts, is with the abstract, which is just, you write 17 plus 9, and you add 9 plus 7, and you write the 6 down here and the 1 up here. And that's abstract because it's just symbols on a page, which mean nothing. So you move through those 3 steps, and then once they've understood it and then can draw little diagrams of it, it's easy to do. It's easier to do the concrete or the abstract because they understand what's going on. Okay. Did anything I say make sense? Shake your heads at me. Yes. Okay. All right. We'll talk more about that, but that's really kind of the foundation of this course. We're also going to, in your textbook, and you really, really need a textbook. So if you don't have one, get it ordered immediately, because we're going to use it a lot. in each chapter, there's 3 or 4 places where you analyze the errors that they're making. And then we'll talk about, well, if you had a child that was making this type of errors, what could you do to help them, overcome that problem? So you're going to need that. There's also questions in the text that are assigned almost every week. So who has your textbook so far? I see one. Yay, Anthony. All right. JL, do you have your textbook?
Mine is in the mail right now,
In
so
the mail. Okay, that's good. How about you, DeShante?
No, not yet, but I'm getting all of my books pretty much are digitalized, so
You're getting what?
they're all digital.
Oh, digital. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, you can get that book digital because I have a digital copy of it. So a digital is fine. You just need to be able to, you just need to have access to it. I personally believe this is a good book to buy that you're going to want, but if you want to borrow it from somebody who had the course before, or there may be a copy in the library, I don't mind if you don't buy it, but I do think as a special ed major, this would be a good one that you might want to have to refer to. So, okay. And so you will diagnose an actual student and then initiate and practice remediation requirements with that student. So you're actually going to get to test a real student. So let me ask a question. Do any of you know someone that's elementary for the two ladies and secondary for the man that you could test? Do any of you know somebody who has a problem, or even just know somebody who has kids that would let you borrow them and test them? DeShante, tell me who this person is.
Well, I can use Miss Byers. She has her baby girl.
Okay.
And then, well, since I've been just kind of in the school for my practicum and stuff, I'm pretty sure I could talk to some of the teachers and just
Okay.
ask.
All right. Yeah, we're gonna, if we can't find anybody else, we're gonna use Mrs. Byers' 3 kids. But I would, if you have somebody or know somebody, she said both of her boys, I don't know about her little girl yet, but both of her boys are very good in math. So you would actually be almost diagnosing for gifted rather than a disability if you do hers, but you would still get the practice of giving the test, learning what kinds of things to look for. So the best thing would be if you could test somebody who has a disability, but either way, you're going to benefit from testing.
I mean, does it have to be like in person, or can it be like done over Zoom?
It's hard to do over Zoom. You
Okay.
could, but it would be better to do in person. But do you have
Okay.
somebody that doesn't live here that you had in mind?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we can talk about it. JL, do you know anybody? Have anybody?
there are several people actually, because I work with the special education department for the church. So there are
okay.
several kids that I already know. And then there's one kid that I babysit for that I could definitely probably be able to test him for.
Okay. Well, check with the parents on those. Because if you do the math, you're going to do the other class too, until it's going to be semester long. You're going to be giving a variety of tests.
Okay.
Okay. So if you can line somebody up, that would be wonderful. Somebody who really does have needs, because like I said, you'll learn the most from testing somebody who really has a disability, because you'll see what a disability looks like on the test. Okay. But just practicing giving the test is of value as well. So, Anthony, I doubt you know anybody because you haven't been here very long.
So I think I can maybe get someone and everything from my hometown.
Okay. But the problem
But
is you won't be there to test them.
yeah, I know. I know a lot more like young
Right.
kids
Yeah.
from my hometown and everything. But like I said, I don't know like people around here.
Right.
Like wish like my town was like an hour, which that wasn't bad, which that's not bad and
Oh,
everything.
you could go home like on a weekend and do it. Is that what you're saying? That you could?
Not like on a week. Like I wish they were like closer and everything because I know a lot of kids in like my hometown with like
Okay.
disabilities and everything. because actually, like my uncle before he passed and everything, he was getting into this like special education and everything. So
Okay.
a lot of people used to go to him, and then he mentioned me a lot because I was going to special education when I was transferring.
Okay. So,
So
so if you want to check by next week, I want to know who you're testing. Okay. So if you've got people in mind, which it sounds like all of you potentially do, talk to the parent, make sure it's okay with them, you know. Um, for this one, the key math, it's going to occur, you're going to have tested, I think 2 weeks from today, you're going to have had the testing done. So you've got, and you can't start till next week because I'm going to introduce you to the test next week. I was supposed to do it today, you know, so it may be 3 weeks from today. Well, I have to look at how I'm rearranging things, but so, you know, so get somebody in mind and make a plan for how you're going to get to them and test them in the next 2 or 3 weeks. Okay. So do that, have that ready for next week when you come to class. Be ready to tell me for sure who you're testing and all that.
yeah, and then Ultimate's bio said I can use her kids too because
Right.
I
Yeah.
was at a meeting
I
for
talked to
like
her. Yeah. I talked to her yesterday and, you know, she did agree, you know, that everybody can use her kids if you need to. But like I said, since her boys are good in math, that's not gonna give you the best experience. It'll give you a decent experience, but if you can find somebody at home, because this class you only have to test once, you would only have to make one trip, you know, and it's maybe 2 hours at the most time of testing. Okay.
yeah.
So, all right. So that's that. Your prerequisites, I know you all have this, or you wouldn't be in the class. We talked about textbooks. So your outcomes, interpret the key math test and write a report explaining the problems found and suggestions for remediations and accommodations. Then we're going to talk about, and I think that may be something we're talking about today with the rearrangement, barriers to learning math. Why do kids have math disabilities? You know, what are some of the things that get in the way of them learning math? So we're going to talk about that and then use that knowledge quite a bit through the course. Describe how a struggling learner can learn mathematics. And then you're going to do 2 lessons. We'll peer teach 2 lessons in this. One is a lesson for initial understanding, and then one is a lesson for building proficiency. And we'll talk a lot more about them along the way. But they will be basically your midterm and your final. Okay, so we won't have a written midterm and final. Deshante, you had me. Well, no, you probably didn't. Does anybody know why I like to give a midterm and final that is, you know, a peer teaching or a teaching in the classroom or something? Why is that better than a written final? Anybody? Everybody tell me what you think.
It's like just the experience.
Yeah.
It's a better experience than just
Okay.
writing something. You're like actually doing it and getting that training.
Okay. And JL, you started to say something?
I was gonna say the best type of person that, like, if you know that you've mastered a concept is when you can actually teach it. So
Okay.
if you're someone that can not only do all the problems and you know how to do them, but if you can teach someone else how to do them is probably more important than taking a written test. And that's just
Okay.
doing your knowledge and not seeing what other people can learn from what you did.
Okay. Anthony, any thoughts
I
besides what we said?
think so. Like it's better to like show because I actually taught in the classroom last semester, well, last year and stuff, like in the fall and the spring last year, and I taught like 70 hours and everything. And the kids grasped it more. And that was basically like my final and like midterm and everything when I was at my
Okay.
old school. So it was basically like it was pretty fun and stuff. Like I had to do like lesson plans. I also had to do like separate lesson plans for like kids for like disabilities and like get pulled out of the room and stuff. Like I was always with those type of kids too at the end because I was like I was teaching 8th grade math and like actual like pre-algebra. I'm like, yeah, I can't do this. So that's why it was getting kind of difficult for me. I'm like, yeah, I'm going back. I can't do 8th grade. I
I
can't
can't
do
do 8th grade
pre-algebra.
math.
I can't do 8th grade. I'll admit that. That's the one thing I can't do.
Somebody's
So
peeking in on Deshante. Okay, yes. Have you ever had a teacher who you knew, you could tell that they knew their subject inside and out, but they had trouble communicating it? Okay, Anthony, you're shaking your head. Yes. Tell me about that teacher.
It was actually when I was in high school and everything. This teacher knew so much. I think it was a history. Listen, I'm getting older and like I'm starting. High
It
school
was a
starting to
while ago.
go.
Yeah.
It was a while ago. I'm 21, so it's like it's been a while. So, but I think it was like a history class, and I can just tell the teacher knew so much and everything, but she did not know how to like speak to us. Like she was like she was like looking around the room, like I kind of like seen like what she was doing and everything because I used to like always like look and just like see what's going on. So I kind of like caught a glimpse of it. Which,
Uh,
but at the end, like yeah, I learned so much because I did stuff on my own and everything, and I just did a lot of notes. But other
yeah.
than that,
So you could know a lot. You could do wonderful on a
yeah,
written test and not be able to communicate it. And the whole point of you as education majors is to be able to communicate it. And if something isn't getting through to the students, fix it, and know how to do those kinds of things.
Mhm.
JL, have you known somebody, a teacher who knew it well but couldn't communicate it well?
Yes, I had a high school calculus teacher that was extremely well versed in calculus, like knew it front to back and could probably teach it in her sleep. But when it came to us asking questions and demonstrating to us each concept, she could not communicate at all about what she expected, how the problems were supposed to look, and then the steps to get to each um answer, which was a struggle with calculus because there's a lot of steps.
Mhm.
So we would be going through it and it's like, oh wow, okay, I missed one step here, but now we're all the way down at the bottom of the answer and I don't remember what happened and can't remember what happened.
Yeah. And yet if I'd have given her a written test on calculus, she'd have aced it. So the best test for a teaching class is to teach, because that's the ultimate goal. Is that Shante, a teacher who knew it but couldn't teach?
I don't really have a teacher in mind per se. I mean, I guess like when I was in physics in high school, um, she at first wasn't the best, but like I was like the class as a whole like wasn't doing well. So then I guess like different measures started being put into place. And then like she kind of changed her ways, but
Okay.
it made it better. She like it became like just more hands-on and we did like more activities and stuff and how she just went over things, which just conveyed better than before.
Well, good. It's always good to hear when a teacher improves. That's good. But anyway, so that those two lessons, and we may meet in person on the 2 days when you peer teach. We'll decide that at the time. It may be easier to peer teach if you're in person, but anyway, we'll decide that. But that'll be your midterm, and your final will be those two teaching activities. Uh, another goal here, the affective, which is talking about the emotional involvement in it. Appreciate the usefulness of math in everyday life and the need for teaching math in ways that make it useful in real life situations by incorporating everyday activities into math lessons. We'll talk a fair amount about this too, but it's real important for the kids that they see why they need to know this. And if you're in real life situations, then it makes them buy into it. And so they're willing to work a little harder at it. Okay, see, validation, course requirements, your academic regulations. I think you all know that we're not going to have any papers, so there's not going to be any real plagiarism. I don't know that AI will help you a whole lot on this, but you want to do the work yourself and not ask AI to do it for you, because that's not how you learn things. AI, and let's just back up for a minute and talk about AI. AI certainly is a great benefit to a teacher. How can have any of you used AI for, and I don't mean that, I'm not asking you, did you plagiarize? I'm just, have you experimented with AI, Chat GPT or anything, and asked it things and see what it can do?
I've
Yes.
used Grammarly, but that's about it. Like Grammarly
Yeah.
has an AI system that will actually, if you ask it to condense your paper down after you already wrote it, it'll condense it down. If you ask for other synonyms, it gives you other synonyms.
Okay.
Like it's useful for that, but I haven't used anything else because I feel like it's more work.
Anybody else, have you used AI, Shani? No. Okay. Um, you know, it's very useful for teachers because you can get information, you know, fairly quickly. If you're trying, or you could probably, you know, instead of having to search for yourself, you could ask it for, you know, is there another, can you show me 3 ways to teach this? And it can do that. So it's got a lot of wonderful benefits that we as teachers will use. But if you use it as to do your learning for you, then it's not a benefit, right? So it's kind of like, if you break your leg, or whatever, you need a crutch for a little while, and it's okay to use it then. But if you're using the crutch when you don't need it, then your legs get weak and you won't be able to walk without it. So anyway, so that's my little spiel on AI. Okay. Electronic device policy, you certainly, we're going to be using laptops. Since we're on Zoom, most of you will have your laptop. Feel free, if I'm when we'll share the whiteboard at times. So if you don't know how to share your whiteboard, those kind of things, you might want to experiment, just to play around. This week is a good week to learn some new things, because you don't have a whole lot of other homework and stuff yet. So, you know, play with Zoom a little bit and see if you can figure out how to share your screen, share your whiteboard, and that kind of thing. Okay. And then there's just a few additional resources. Okay. So that's the syllabus. Let me close it and figure out, there it is. Okay. I'm gonna close it. Oh, I forgot to tell Mrs. Byers that we were on Zoom. Oh, well, shoot. Let me send her a text, because she wanted to sit in. She's going to try and sit on these classes, because eventually she'll be teaching them. So she's going to try. Let me send her a message real quick. Let's see. I just saw her that they had put her on as a teaching assistant. We are on Zoom. I'm assuming that the information on Populi worked well, so that you got, because nobody seemed to have any trouble getting on, except Anthony's didn't want to work, but but you were there. Just okay. Okay, I'll send her a text. All right, sorry about that. Okay, so let's go into lessons here. And I'm gonna actually probably pull some things from maybe even a couple lessons, and then we'll rearrange. But key concepts in math education, that's the only reason I don't, typically I would say that would be the starting point for a course like this. But because we are going to give the test, and it takes a number of weeks to get through some of the testing things, I start the first week off by introducing the test, so that we can progress from there while we're doing other things. So the key concept for math education, what I want you to do, everybody, go to lesson 2 on your thing and pull up, there's a document there that says key concepts in math education. I'm going to give you about 10 to 15 minutes, depending on how much you need, to read that. And you don't have to write this, but be ready to talk about something that surprised you, and how you would apply, there's 4 different concepts in there, how you would apply that in a class that you were teaching, okay? So can everybody find it? Is everybody finding it okay? And we'll just stay on, and it'll just be quiet. And when you're done and you're ready, just, just say, I'm done, or I'm ready, or whatever, because okay, is everybody okay with that? Everybody shake your heads at me. Yes, you got it? Okay, all right, good. I'm gonna be quiet for a few minutes. I'm gonna disappear for a second. I have to go get a drink and then I'll be right back. Is everybody done reading? Yes, okay. You guys are fast. All right. So let me pull it up here. So it'll be shared again so we can see it. Okay. So the first one, visualizing, was kind of what I was talking about in the CRA concept of concrete, representational, and abstract. So the visualizing would fit very well into what we were already talking about. I'm just going to start at the top and go down just because it'll be easier. Then I'll make sure I got everybody. But JL, tell me something. Just tell me something that surprised you in there, if there was anything. Then we'll go back and how you would use it. So JL, anything? You have to unmute. There you go.
I don't know. I think everything about it kind of surprised me because I have a hard time, like, especially visualizing stuff. So I could not imagine for a student that has a math disability how hard it would be to visualize something that you don't necessarily understand. Like with fractions, I can do them straightforward, but once you ask me to show you how to do them, I'm really bad at it because I don't know how to visualize part of a whole and be able to also like show somebody else what a part of a whole would look like.
Okay. And you, what you're saying is it's hard for you to go backwards from the abstract to the concrete.
Yes.
But if you had started out being shown this, and then you understood it, and then you moved to the concrete. I've had a lot of people over the years in my math for elementary teachers, especially when we got to fractions and we started doing it with the fraction blocks and everything, they're going, man, I wish somebody taught me this way. It makes sense, and those were the kids who struggled in math, who were saying, man, I wish I had seen this originally. So what it's saying, and again, there's different kinds of learners. So you've got your visual learners, you've got your auditory learners. And if somebody is not a visual learner, then they may struggle with the concrete. They're better at just hearing it and just going with it. But a lot of kids, are visual learners, and especially the kids with disabilities. Hey, Anthony, what about you? What surprised you or?
So I think what surprised me is, but when it says students need pictures of 1/4 of means of 1/3, like that one kind of like gave me like a little head nod, because I do believe that students like need pictures to see everything, and just like because students when they look at pictures, like if they have disabilities and stuff, they're just like, oh, I feel like I get this more and everything. If they see the problems as a picture step by step, it'd be like, oh, I think I get it more and everything, because that's kind of like I was and everything. Like I had to see pictures like all the time. And that's what I was used to and everything. So seeing this just kind of reminded me of me, and just surprised me. It's like, wow.
So you're agreeing with it because this would have been true for you, or this is true for you. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Shani.
I think more so going with JL. I'm not a visual real learner. So seeing things to just like try to picture something isn't really like my cup of tea. So the fact that it's like it increases understanding, it's like, no, I have to do it. I have to be doing it. I can't just like look at it and be like, oh, okay. Like sometimes I can, but like other times, if it's like something new that I'm not familiar with, I would rather like walk and talk, like us doing it together, than just here it is, figure it out.
Okay. And this is definitely not saying that they just look at it, but that they get to see it along with with explanation. And so it's not, but it's visual and auditory and not just auditory, which a lot of math, the teacher will, just do the problem on the board and you do this and you put this here and instead of using the manipulatives to show why you do it first before you just say, okay, this is what you write on your paper. So you two ladies that are in elementary need to really work on understanding the visualization, because you're going to have students in your classes who are going to need them. You know, if it's hard for you because you're just good at math and you just get it, then you have to work harder at being able to understand and explain what the visualizations mean. I have somebody who came up to say hi. So he just, I don't know if you can you, he's, let's see, you see how big he is. He just jumped from the floor to the counter. Can you believe? That's the first time I've seen him do it. It's like, how in the world you're so little? How could you jump that high? That'd be like us jumping to the roof of the house or something. It's unbelievable. Okay, way off the track. Sorry. Okay, so visualizing. At the bottom, in a variety of studies, the effect size for this type of practice ranged from 0.50 to 1.31, translated to percentage gain of 20 to 40%. So percentile gain. So if you took a group and you did not visualize and you compared them to a group that did visualize, what this is saying is that the final outcome, instead of being at the 20th percentile, they would be at the 40th percentile, or even up to the 60th percentile. So it made a huge, very large, that's a very large impact to move that much in percentiles. All right. So in studies, it's been shown that this is a very important thing. All right. Practice. Okay. We'll come back and talk about how we would use them in our class, but okay. So obviously we know it. We have to practice. I mean, that's why we give homework. That's why we do problems in class. That's why. So we know that practice is important. There's one thing in here I think that it may surprise you, but tell me, I'll start at the bottom this time, and then I'll start in the middle next time. Shani, what surprised you on this? You got to unmute.
I don't know. I'm a strong believer in practicing. So yes, I don't know. I believe practice just builds fluency, and that's how you just kind of become better over time. It's just with practicing. So practice makes perfect, as they say.
Okay.
Practice makes fluent.
Okay. Yeah. Practice. The one problem is wrong practice can lead to bad habits and bad things. So you have to make sure that they're practicing correctly. They're not practicing, if you do 20 problems and you do them all incorrect, all you've done is reinforce that bad concept that you have. Okay. So practice is important. Okay. Anthony, something in there that surprised you?
I think what surprised me is basically how do you say her name again?
Shani.
Shawnee, but basically practice makes perfect and everything, and just all that. And basically, what surprised me too was the hold up, what was it? Great deals of practicing that students can perform the skills with speed and accuracy, because a lot of kids I've seen want to do their work fast and everything. If they just take their time and just do it, it will be much better for them. But a lot of kids nowadays, even when I was in the classroom, love to speed through work and everything. Just love it.
Yeah, you don't want to speed through.
Yeah.
I'm gonna talk about something in a minute, but I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna let JL answer. So I don't, if she's gonna say what I was gonna say, I don't want to steal her thunder. So go ahead, JL. What stood out to you in this?
The same thing as Anthony, the speed, and I like that it said like the level of competence increased to 49. I'm at 47.9% for complete mastery, which is actually really impressive. Because I got to watch a math lesson actually in my practicum, that I just completed. And I thought that was one of the things that I loved that the teacher did is she walked students through each step of the math problem. And before she sent them to like independent work, she actually did a small group activity with like about two students per group. And she had them practice the steps with each other. And then if they got the steps right, she actually would allow them, once they got it right, to move on to their independent practice. And there was increased speed in the way that they completed the problems. And then if the students didn't necessarily understand what happened, she would bring them back to her desk and would actually show them what they did wrong and explain why they were missing a step and what they could do better before they were allowed to move on.
Okay. And that kind of goes to what I said to Shani. You can practice wrong, that's no value. In fact, it's detrimental because then you've got to go back and unlearn that wrong practice you've been doing. So it's better to do like JL said, to have them practice in a small group and practice individually and be watching and making sure that they're practicing the right thing. So many teachers will spend the whole time teaching and then they say, okay, go home and do this for homework. And then what happens? They go home, they either don't do it at all because they don't remember how, or they practice it wrong. And then you have to unlearn the wrong they've done. Is interesting how much practice it takes before you really reach mastery. The first 4 practice sessions do pretty good. It gets you almost to 50% mastery, the first 4. But then it says it's not until they practice upwards of 24 times that they are really competent at it. And we don't, and that's why, in a sense, our curriculum spirals. Why do we still practice addition in 6th grade at the beginning of the 6th grade math book? Because they still need, they're still missing pieces maybe, or they just still need some more practice to really be fluent. But here's the other thing that really stood out to me that I thought was very interesting. American 2nd graders spend 30 minutes on 2 to 3 pages of addition and subtraction. The Japanese students are reported to be more likely to use the same amount of time looking at 2 or 3 problems in depth, focusing on the reasoning processes necessary to solve them. So they are, in their case, it's quantity. I mean, it's quality over quantity. They spend time, this would be where they would maybe get the blocks and lay them out, and then they would sketch them, and then they would go to the abstract of actually just writing out the problem and doing it. And they would work through this process for 2 or 3 problems instead of doing 2 or 3 pages of addition problem. They're still getting the same amount of practice. It's a different way of looking at the kind of practice. And again, the effect size of practice range, the percentile gain was from 21 to 44%. Okay. All right. Let me move down. Cooperative learning. We kind of talked about this one. JL, I'm going to let you start just because you kind of talked about this a little bit when you were talking about how the teacher did and had them work together. Anything on cooperative learning that stood out to you in there that you want to add?
So personally, I hate cooperative learning just because I was always like the student that could do it myself. But I found that actually with math and having a smaller class in college and only having 3 people, having a small group of 3 people, like 3 or 4 people that are working on the same problem together was actually extremely helpful because I had one girl that was like never struggled at all with math. And then me, I was in the middle, and then the other girl struggled extremely badly. Like it was awful with math. So like small groups like that was actually beneficial because there were always things that one of us would understand a little bit more than the other. And so in that, we were able to show each other kind of the process of, oh, you missed this step and you didn't understand this. Can I explain it to you? And I love that because that was extremely helpful. And I think that like going along with the reading, it does actually really increase the amount that students will understand after they've practiced it. Because I know for me, like when like with fractions, one girl was really good with fractions in my class. And when I got to actually learn from her and see what she did, along with what the teacher taught, it actually made more sense. And I was like, oh, now I can visualize that. That makes more sense. But it took someone else plus the teacher being able to explain that for me to get it.
Okay. And you're talking about that as a college student. Think about a third grader, you know, the teacher's explaining it, and the teacher, you try as a teacher to put it down in kid language, but you're not a kid. Okay. If a third grader can explain it in her own language to somebody in her group, it can be a great benefit. So, you know, I'm glad you experienced that, because it will make you more likely to do it when you're teaching.
Yes.
I want to come back and talk about the homogeneous and heterogeneous groupings if nobody talks about them, but let me move on. Anthony?
I think for cooperative learning, it's actually really good for students and everything, because I've seen small group students score higher than everyone in the classroom and everything. And I actually think they work out so much beneficial and everything, because small groups, it helps like with, is it, how do you say it? JL?
Jail, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Basically, with the small groups, if someone's struggling, the other person can come in and help and everything. Because think about it, if the teacher's busy with another group, the one student that's helping can help the other kids and everything. It's just like with kids nowadays, when I was in teaching too, like in my observations, I've seen so many students like they were helping one, like another student, like small groups, and then they were just like other kids were like helping each other and everything. But they were doing a lot of like online stuff too with the school I was at. I didn't like the online stuff. I tried to, because I tried talking to teachers. She was so big with online, which I was like, okay, that's fine with you.
Yeah.
Like doing like math problems online, doing this online. Like, yeah, I can't do that. Like, if that's why I had to get out like that pre-algebra. Like that was just like a mess. Like because like no, I'm not like literally everything for 8th grade that year when I had to teach. Every class was basically online, but the students was like they would get work online and they would do it, and I'm like, what are they doing? Like this is not an act. Like this is basically like virtual learning. Like
Yeah.
basically.
And you know,
But
somebody who's a really good student, um, virtual learning is fine. They can move at their own pace, and they can, you know, but for the average to below average student, virtual learning is not all
yeah,
that wonderful.
it's not.
Unless, yeah. Okay, Deshante?
I like cooperative learning. Basically just what everyone already kind of touched on. Like it's easier if a kid isn't understanding, you know, how maybe the teacher isn't going over something, then a student can help like assist that. I feel like students learn better from other students anyway. Um, I did think like the 5 to 20% was like kind of interesting. Was that just like math or like in general? Do you know?
I don't know. Um, it didn't say, I mean, I think, let's see.
Yeah, it just says
What's the
like
title of this
class
one about math?
time
Yeah,
and social groups. But
yeah. Well, social groupings just means, you know, not that they're socializing, but
you
that
are right. But
they're working together. Um, the understand the difference between homogeneous and heterogeneous groups that middle section is talking about. Homogeneous means that everybody is at about the same level. So that would be, you'd put all your average students together, you put your gifted students together, and you'd put your slow students together. Okay. This is saying that homogeneous groups are more effective for the middle ability students. Low ability students perform worse in homogeneous groups. Okay, heterogeneous would be sort of like what JL was talking about, the group that you had in your math for elementary teachers last semester. You know, you had one high, one middle, and one low, basically. And the high student can help everybody. The middle student even gets practice though at teaching because they're helping the lower student. So somebody today already said you learn something better if you teach it. so in a heterogeneous group, the good students are solidifying their understanding because they're explaining it to somebody else. So it helps them. The low student is benefiting because they have somebody else to explain it to them. So for the most part, a heterogeneous group is the best. Is there ever a time to have a homogeneous group? Yeah, I'm sure there is, but probably not for the low students, because then they're not benefiting from anybody else's knowledge. You know, if nobody in the group gets it, well, what good is the group? Because they can't help each other because nobody gets it. So you want to think about when you make groupings, you know, who's in the group. You also, in a real classroom, you know, also have to think about the personalities and, you know, who gets along with who and who doesn't. You don't want them to be too social with each other, but you don't want to have two people that are always at each other's throat either, you know. So you've got to think about that in the groupings. Okay, the last one, progression of development. And this is definitely, we've already talked about. Learning should begin at the concrete level. Teacher demonstrates the concept with manipulatives. And it says, although this is better than nothing, children should use manipulatives to explore the concepts for themselves. So the teacher demonstrating it is definitely better. JL, I think it was at your class that I came in and I had you put those things in order for what you would learn the best and whatever. Okay. And remember, demonstration was probably about the middle, but doing it yourself was, you know, was a higher level of learning. So it's better to demonstrate the manipulatives than nothing. But the best thing is to have the kids have the manipulatives or have a tablet that has the virtual manipulatives on where they actually get to manipulate them and do it and try things out for themselves. Okay. Then representational would be pictures and that kind of thing, which is good. But that's the second step. And then finally, of course, abstract is where most of the math teaching starts. And the abstract level is our goal. In other words, our goal isn't for them to have to get out the base 10 blocks every time they want to do an addition problem. Okay? The goal is that gives them understanding enough to be able to move to the abstract level. But if you just start at the abstract level, I don't know who's good or not good in math here, but if in fractions, for example, that's one place where people really start to get mixed up, because when you're doing certain things in fractions, you have to have a common denominator, but you don't have to have it for everything. So like you have to have a common denominator to add and subtract, but you don't need a common denominator to multiply and divide. But so many kids, because they don't really understand it, they're just doing the abstract level thinking. They start out learning common denominators and they just carry that over. So they try to get common denominators for multiplying and dividing, which will work. You can still do it, but then you're going to have to reduce once you get the answer because you've gotten the numbers bigger than they needed to be to start with. So the abstract, a lot of the problems we have in abstract level is because we don't have the understanding to be able to differentiate between why do you need a common denominator when you add and subtract, but you don't when you multiply and divide. And so that giving that depth of understanding is so valuable for kids for moving forward. Okay. Any of these things, any of these four things, how would you use them in teaching? And I know, you know, none of you are teachers yet, although Anthony sounds like he might have had a little bit of experience, but which one of those would you use and tell me, and how would you use it in your class? Anthony, I'm going to let you start. You haven't gotten to start yet.
So I'll do the cooperative learning because it's just like small groups, because that's just like, I like that as a teacher and everything, because being with small groups, like some people may think different, like you may meet your people in your groups like every day. Like in my class, I'm already like trying to think of ways and everything for teaching and stuff. I like for special education, I want to do like little small groups, like maybe 2 to a group, 3 to a group and stuff, because it makes them like want to meet more people and everything, because honestly, but like that's a whole different subject. I know this and math and everything. It's just like they want to meet new people. That's why I like the cooperative learning, because it helps them be able to meet new people, be socialized and everything. Because a lot of people, I can tell a lot of kids nowadays are not socialism, like not social, but like they don't talk a lot to other
Uh-huh.
people. So that's why I like the cooperative learning. Like I'm gonna be using that a lot in my
Okay.
classroom.
Yeah, it's actually a little more difficult for the teacher because you have to plan not only what the lesson's gonna be, but what the groups are gonna do, you know, and then you have
Mhm.
to be supervising. So, you know, it's a little more work, but I
Yeah.
think for all in a lot of different ways, you know, the socialization and like JL said, the depth of understanding that the group can gain. It does have benefits. I think a lot of teachers don't use it just because of it takes more work for the teacher. Now, the more you do it, the less work it takes because you've got activities planned and you know how it's going to work. But your first time through, your first year teaching, cooperative learning is a lot more work than just standing up and teaching the lesson. So, so that, but I agree. I love cooperative learning. Um, I think I think it's got so much going for it. I don't know if it was the first math for elementary teachers that I taught, or first or second year. I think I had 10 kids in the class. And so it was pretty big. And so we paired them up. And then I only had to talk to 5 groups to help make sure that everybody was understanding rather than 10 individual people doing their work. So, so cooperative learning is definitely, you know, a good technique in a variety of things, but I would say, you know, especially in math. I mean, I would say, you know, if you had to pick, it's less valuable in history than it is in math. Because in history, it's more knowledge based, and math is almost more skill based. And so anything that's a skill based activity, cooperative learning is going to be very valuable. Okay, a different one. You can't pick cooperative learning. Okay, Deshante.
Mine would definitely be practice,
Okay,
because you can really get practice in at any time. You can make it into a fun game, or you can make it into an activity. It can be a bell word, like bell ringer or something, just always just building on it. So I like
okay.
practice, practice, practice.
Practice, practice, practice. Okay. And I like what you said, because if practice is just always doing a worksheet, people aren't going to want the practice. But if practice can be a game, if practice can be a computer drill, if you make practice a variety of activities, you know, then the kids are more likely to buy into continuing to practice. I mean, how many worksheets do you want to do?
Yeah.
How many times do you want to practice the same thing on a worksheet? You know, that gets boring. I mean, and if you're struggling with it, it's like no fun. And if you're good at it, it's like I don't need to do this. And so, you know, you definitely have to come up with variety in practice. And again, that makes more work for the teacher. If you could just pull out a worksheet and hand it to them, you know, that's a whole lot less work for you than trying to figure out how to make it a game, or how to make it a computer activity, or how to make centers where they go around and practice it in different ways at each center. Again, a lot more work for you as the teacher, but a lot more valuable for the kids. So, all right. So JL, you've only got 2 left now. Either
So,
development, or what was the other one? Visualizing.
so I would actually use a combination of all of them
Okay.
in my teaching, because like, especially since I struggle with visualization, I think that would be really effective as far as teaching goes, to be able to also show my students, okay, this is where I struggled at, so I want to make sure you're successful here. So
Okay.
I would use visualization with building on, and also scaffolding, like progression development, and starting off with the visuals with like a base 10 if I'm using that, and explaining why that's important to know, and going in depth, and then being able to either use a game or activity where it's a representation where they can actually go through and they can practice it. And then at the abstract level, that would be my last thing that I really would want to target, especially if like you struggle with visualization. I would want to see you be able to be at least like 80% fluent with visualization, to the point that you understand it, you can show me and explain to me why the concept is important. And then I would move to abstract and have them be able to demonstrate it without having any of the visuals. But I think the visuals is definitely something to really build on, which is why, even though it's not my favorite thing, I think it would actually be really useful to do visualization over anything else. Because if you can wrap your brain around the concept first, and
Mhm.
then when you go to practice it, I think it'll help boost like the way and the fluency that you have throughout all three of the developments.
Okay, yeah, and that's really good, because the whole purpose of doing the visualization or the concrete first is that you're building the concept and then moving to being able to do it quickly. You know, when you're learning to drive, that probably wasn't too long ago for most of you.
No.
You know, your skill, your knowledge and your skill level improves. The first time you tried to parallel park, what happened?
It was a
Okay.
little awkward.
Yeah. You either didn't get in, or you bumped the curb, or you bumped the cones. I mean, you you need to be able to visualize where the car needs to start, how much you need to turn, how far you back up before you turn again, and then doing it over and over and over, you become good at it, right? And you actually pass your driver's test, and you can have a driver's license. But it's the same thing. We want that understanding first. So let's see. I think if I'm gonna pull up a whiteboard just for a minute, if I can figure out where it is. Let's see. Move this out of the way. Maybe it's under more. Let's see. Okay, now where's my, okay, maybe is it under sharing? Do I get to pick whiteboard there? Okay, yeah, there it is. Okay. So for sharing, you want to, if you don't know this, I'm remembering, but I'm also telling you at the same time. So throughout this course, we're going to end up sharing our whiteboards a lot, because we'll show things that we're doing and whatever. But so I'm going to pull up my whiteboard and I'm going to say share. Okay. Okay. Oh, toolbar upgraded. Check out the brand new toolbar. Okay. I can see that it's there. I don't have time to really get it right now. All right. So another thing that you're going to want to probably have in class is a stylus, and mine, maybe here it is. Yep, there it is. Say mine seems to be missing, but I found it. Okay. It's much easier to write on a whiteboard, and maybe you have now mine. I'm using a laptop, so I do not have it, and I do not have a touchscreen. If you have a touchscreen, it'll be easier. I'm getting my iPad fixed, so I will have a touchscreen. But if you have a touchscreen, a stylus is very nice. Or if you're fancy and you have an iPad and you have one of those little pencils, that'll be nice too. All right, but let's say you've got a child. I'm just going to show you the importance of visualizing and the importance of doing concrete, representational, abstract. And this is going to be, we're going to say that probably every week throughout the whole semester. And we're, that's basically the basis of your teaching, in a sense, that you're going to be doing. So let me just illustrate. So let's say you've got a kid who they're trying to add, let's see, 30. On this, I have to write with my mouse. So that's not super easy, but it's okay. It'll work. 36 plus 48. Okay. All right, and we'll say we're in third grade, we're just kind of starting to learn to add 2-digit numbers with regrouping. Okay, which is sometimes called carrying. I don't know which terminology, but regrouping is the new terminology. Okay, so you get a kid who writes this for an answer. What's the problem? DeShante?
They just brought the 14 down instead of carrying over the 10th place.
Okay, so they're having a problem with place value. They don't understand the concept of place value. Okay, so now if you had taught this concrete, representational, and then abstract, they probably wouldn't have a problem with it, but if they did, you would be able to say, remember when we did this with our base 10 blocks? So I'm just going to do representational of base 10 blocks because I don't want to take the time to actually open them right now. But let's say we had done 36. So I'm going to use lines to represent the tens. Okay. So I'm going to put layout 36. I'm going to use dots. Can you see those dots? Are they showing up on your screen? Yeah, they're not too bad. Okay. And I'm going to actually do this on a place value mat. Whoops, that was a really straight line there, wasn't it? Okay. All right. So I'm keeping my tens. I've got a place value for the 30, the tens, and a place for the 6. And then I add 48. So I've actually gotten my manipulatives, my virtual manipulatives, and I've pulled them out and I've lined them up like this. Okay, and I've got 48. Okay, so somebody, what would be, with the manipulatives, what would be the next step? The first step is to lay out the problem. What's the next step?
The next step,
Go ahead, Jay.
the next step would be seeing out of the units how many you can make to get to 10. So if you have it, like if you were to count the 6 and the 8 all together, then that means that you would end up needing to carry over 10 to the 10 to the longs.
Okay, yeah, you would try to see if you can combine them into a long. So I would, and this is showing the representational, a way, how can they picture what the manipulatives are doing? I would circle 10, cross them out, draw an arrow over here. So those 10 individual units are going to combine and they're going to make a long. And when I lay them out with my manipulatives, I put it up at the top because that's closest to what we're going to do on our paper when we're carrying it. All right. So I took those 10, turned them into a long, moved it over here. So now now what have we got left here? We have 4 here. And we have 7, 8 here. Okay. And so my answer, instead of being 714, should be 84. Right. So if you've done it this way and they've done it this way, and somebody did this again, you could say, hey, remember when we had our base 10 blocks? Or you could actually go get the base 10 blocks out or pull up the virtual manipulatives and review and show them, rather than just saying, oh, no, you've got to put that 1 up here. Well, if all you say is that 1 doesn't go there, it goes up here, there's no understanding in that. Do you see the difference between understanding and just doing the problem? Okay. So doing it with manipulatives lets them see why don't we write the 1 here? Why does it go up here? And why does this become 8 instead of 714? So the concrete, you would actually get out or pull up your virtual manipulatives and actually move them around. Then this that I did is representational, where you're kind of drawing a picture of the manipulatives and showing what they're doing, which is quicker and easier for the kid eventually than having to get out the blocks. They can just, if they forget, they can draw a little sketch of it like this. They do it for one problem and they're like, oh yeah, okay, I remember it. Then they can do the rest of the problems on their test or on their homework because they've got a way of picturing. And, worst case scenario, they pull out the manipulatives and they do it with manipulatives until it becomes solid in their brain. Okay. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about the concrete, representational, and abstract. All right. So I'm going to close that. Okay. Got you guys back. I actually I'm going to go back to share screen for a minute because I want to look at Populi. I think that's where I need to be. Okay. So we are going to stop for today. I just want to go over what what you need to do for, so the only thing, that'll be due for the 16th is chapter 1 discussion questions. The key math practice administration you can't do because we haven't gone over the key math. Okay. So your discussion questions, I've got do discussion questions 4, 8, 9, and 9 on page 17. So you don't have to do all discussions. I do want you to write them out. It is a file upload, I'm pretty sure. Let's see, do I have it as a?
So we can write them out on a paper and then give it to you.
You
on
can,
Tuesday?
yes, you probably should type them rather than write them out on paper because then you can upload them to Populate.
Okay,
If
so
you write
just-
them on paper, you're welcome to take a photo and upload that. I don't care.
Okay.
Which way. If it's easier for you to just write them rather than type them, I'm not opposed to that.
Okay, I'll just.
So,
Which one do you
but
think?
you'll upload them before next Tuesday, and then we will probably fairly briefly, but we will discuss them, in class. Tuesday, the main thing we'll do, I'm going to go back to lessons here for a second. The key math test, which is what we were going to do. And you notice that lasts from 1-9 to 2-6 because each week you've got another piece of it till we get to 2-6, the final report we'll do. But we also can't take 4 weeks and just do that. We've got to do other things along the way. But here's kind of your overview. And this is going to change. These dates are going to change. Give the practice test to a roommate or friend. So next week, we're going to look at the test. I actually have 4 copies of it, so you can each have a copy. And I want you this first one isn't to a person that really matters. A roommate, a friend, anybody, have them pretend to be whatever age you want them to be. So I want you to pretend to be a 6th grader, or I want you to pretend to be a 10th grader, or do it like you think a 10th grader would do. The point of that is you will have gone through the whole test once. You're learning to write the answers and keep it moving, all at the same time. Then we're going to talk about analyzing it and different things as we go from week to week. So this all may move. This may end up moving to February 13th. I don't care, whatever. But we've gotten through most of week 2 today, so we should be okay and not fall too far behind. let me take a minute. I think I can. Let's look at the standardized testing general information. We can do that real quick without the booklet. Okay, I'm going to move you guys out of the way. You're right in the middle of my thing. Okay. So standardized testing. What's the difference between like a test you give your kids in, a math test that they give, and this key math test that we're going to give? What's the difference between, just general curriculum testing and the standardized testing? Anybody?
One is from the government, and one is like kind of homemade.
Okay, well, one is your test is homemade, or it may come with your curriculum, but it's a class test is over a particular part of the material. Okay, it's over chapter 5 in your math book, right? It's got a it's got a set standard. In other words, if you get them all right, you get 100. You know, if there's 10 questions and you get one wrong, you get a 90, and so on. Standardized testing is a lot different. It actually takes a lot of work and time for the companies to develop these tests. I have actually helped companies do some of the standardization. They actually, before they even put the questions together, they might write 10 possible questions that they want to cover this concept. And they would have testers out in the field ask these 10 questions to a variety of kids. And then they see which question is best. And then once the questions are asked and they've got the test put together, then they have to give it to hundreds and thousands of people so that they can see and get those grade equivalents and those percentiles. So it's a very, very long process to develop. And there's no 100% on there. It's how did you do compared to other people in your grade? So it's more of a comparison test. Because the key math test is made to give from, I don't know I can't remember, I have to look, kindergarten through 12th grade or second grade through 12th grade. But so unless you were in 12th grade, and even there, they've got questions that are beyond what a 12th grader should be able to do. Nobody's going to get 100%. Nobody's going to get all the questions right. It's not made to be that way. But let's look at some of this information. The test must be administered exactly as described in the book. The wording may not be changed in any way. You can't leave words out. You can't add words. You can't explain anything. You can't give supplemental instructions. You have to give it exactly as it is in the book. And that'll make more sense when you see the booklets. Have any of you given a standardized test at all? Okay. But so when you see the booklet, you'll see that the kid has a picture facing him, you have instructions facing you, and you read the instructions exactly as they're printed on your page. You can't reword it. That means you can't explain it. You just have to they have to do the best they can. Follow instructions about what to do if the subject fails to respond. The goal of the standardized testing is to compare how well the subject responds when given instructions identical to those presented to other subjects. So you're wanting to compare them to all the people who took the test when what they call normed it, when they said, okay, this number of answers correct corresponds to a 6th grade 2nd month level. All of you have taken standardized tests. Your end of the year SAT or FCAT tests or whatever are standardized tests. And you get a grade level equivalent, and it tells you how you do compared to other kids. Okay, instructions regarding pointing must be followed regarding where, when, and how to point. Sometimes they want you to point, sometimes they don't. Strive for brisk testing. Present the next item as soon as the subject has answered. So you want to move it along, as quickly as possible, but not too quickly. The physical setting is important. You want it to be quiet and comfortable. You don't want to be in the hallway with people walking down the hall back and forth. Okay. You don't want to be in a little closet where it's too hot and they're dying, or too cold. So you've got to, these are things that are important, because what happens if you're trying to take a test and you're too hot or you're too cold? How does that impact you? Yeah, you're thinking more about that you're hot or cold or hungry or whatever than you are about focusing on, it's harder to focus on the test. Adequate ventilation, lighting, free from visual distractions and noise, no other people in the room. Okay. Seating arrangement, we'll talk about that. I'll demonstrate that when we get to class. You are going to, and I told you that you have like an easel and it's sitting on the table and one page is facing the kid, the other page is facing you. You're going to want a clipboard or some kind of a hard surface that you can put the test booklet on, because you want to write the answers down without them being able to see what you're writing. So because in this case, again, this is a little different than a teaching or a teaching situation. They can't know what they got right and wrong. And we may get to that in a minute, but you need something that you can write on, lean on. It can even just be, a book or something, but you need to be able to write on a piece of paper and in a hidden fashion on your lap, behind the easel or whatever. All right. Breaking the ice. So you're going to go in and test this kid. You've never met them before. Typically, if you're testing if you're giving the key math to somebody and you're in a school, you probably are the person who is, in charge of helping to figure out why this kid's having problems in math. You may never have met them before. So you want to just chat, introduce yourself, ask about their family. Don't assume there's a mom and dad. We know in this day and age, a lot of kids don't live in the nuclear family, mom, dad, brothers and sisters. Who lives in your house with you? They may live with grandparents. They may be in foster care. They may just have a mom. They may, just have a dad. Nowadays, they may have two moms or two dads. I mean, this world is pretty crazy. So you don't want to ask a question that would be embarrassing, like, your mom, dad, but ask if there's pets. Kids love their pets. Ask about hobbies, sports. I said, introduce yourself. I guess you're supposed to introduce yourself twice. I'm not sure why it says that twice on it, but you can ask them about pets. And then you could say, well, oh, you've got a cat. I have a cat too. You're just getting acquainted. You want this to be like 2 or 3 minutes. This is not a half-hour conversation. Okay. But you want them to start to feel comfortable with you a little bit. Explain the testing situation. They're going to be scared or uneasy, because what does the word test do to a kid who's struggling in school? What's the first reaction a kid has when you say test and they're having trouble? You're going to go take a math test and they're struggling in math.
Anxiety.
Yeah. You want to diffuse that as much as possible. Okay. You want to explain to them it's not for a grade. That's the first thing you're going to think of. Am I going to fail it? You can't fail this test. Okay. It isn't a pass fail test. It's to see what you're good at and what is hard for you. Because even if they're struggling in math, there's some things that they've mastered and that they're going to be good at. Okay. The other thing about this test, each question kind of gets progressively harder as you move through the test. So you want them, and where you start, you want to start where it is a little bit easy for them. Why do you want to start with the easy questions?
It boosts their confidence if they're getting things right first, and then you can build on that as you go further on.
What if you start with a question that's too hard? Okay, pretty quick, they're not going to be trying anymore. But you're right. So the test is designed to begin with things that they ought to be able to do at the beginning, and then it gradually gets harder.
I've also seen like you said, do the easy questions first and everything, because it seems like on most tests nowadays, the easy questions are the ones like they just get right away, and then the hard ones take a little bit longer and everything. Because I read something like an average easy question for a kid takes, I think, like a minute to not even, almost 45 to a minute second, just because they gotta remember it. But then a hard question takes 3 to 6 minutes or something like that.
Okay. Yeah. But so you want to explain to them that this test is it starts easy. Some of the first questions might seem really easy, but it gets harder. And then here's the other thing that you want to explain to them ahead of time. You have to keep asking questions until they miss a certain number in a row. It's different for each test, but you're told what that is, and we'll talk about that again next week. But I have to keep going till you miss 5 or 6 in a row. So it's okay to miss some. Again, on a classroom test, if they know they're missing questions, what are they going to be thinking? This is awful, I'm failing. So you want them to know ahead of time that everybody misses questions on this kind of test. They're supposed to miss questions. In fact, I have to keep going till you miss 5 or 6 in a row. So if you don't miss any, we never get to stop. Make it in a way you can be a little bit silly with that. But you need to explain to them how this test works. Okay. On this test, this is what I was saying earlier. You're wanting to encourage effort. You want to use non-committal responses. You want to say yes or good or okay. You don't ever say right or wrong, right? You don't want the child to know if the answer is right or wrong. If he's not sure, be careful not to say good for every correct answer and okay for each wrong one, because the kid will begin to pick up on it. So sometimes you want to say good, even if he got it wrong, because what you're saying is, good, you're trying, good, you're working, not good, not it's a good answer. Okay. So that's something you have to, when you're practicing with your roommate, that's something you're practicing, is how to respond to these questions without giving away whether the answer is right or wrong. Right? Do not respond to requests for information. If they ask what a word means, say, I'm not supposed to help you with that. Or if they ask if it's correct, you have to say something like, you're doing just fine, keep trying, or whatever. So you can't let them give them that. If you want them to repeat an answer, if you give an answer in class and the teacher says, what's your first thought? I missed it. It was wrong, isn't it? Okay, so you want to make sure that if you didn't hear them or you're not sure what they said, you want to say something that will encourage them to repeat their answer and not change it. Say something like, I missed your answer, say it again. Or I think it was right, but I'm not sure. Can you repeat it? So you're wanting them to know that it wasn't that the answer was wrong, but that you didn't hear it. And you've got to make that really clear, because kids are going to want to change the answer, and they may have given the right answer. You don't want them changing it to wrong. Okay. If you notice that they're missing a lot, and they're going to be knowing, say something like, remember, the test keeps getting harder. It's okay to miss some. Or remember, I have to keep going until you miss 5 or 6 in a row, so it's okay to miss some. Or this is getting really hard, isn't it? Let's just try a few more, just to encourage them to keep going when you're getting to the end part that's hard. Okay. When you're testing, you actually have to step out of your role of teaching. Because the job of a teacher is to help them succeed, to know if the answer is right or wrong, to show them how to do something if they're struggling. I mean, isn't that your goal? If you're doing a math lesson, you're trying to show them, if they got the wrong answer, how to get it right, help the tester. Your goal is to encourage them to keep trying, be non-committal about how they're doing, and not help them in any way. So you almost have to shut off your teacher mode. And all of you already at this point in your life have a teacher mode, right? You've got that mindset of helping people and working with people. To test, you have to shut it off, because all you're doing is trying to find out what they do know. So you have to kind of get yourself into tester mode before you begin testing. Okay. Fill in the information. Okay, starting point, we're going to look at that, do that when we get to it. Interpretation, we're going, okay. So the rest of this, well, I can talk about the bell curve, and then we'll quit. How many of you have taken Ed Psych or somewhere where you've talked about the bell curve? Okay, all right. The bell curve it's really handy, because what it does is it takes scores from any test of any kind, and it puts them into a mold so that you can compare. In this case, not in this case, in this case, we're just going to look at them individually. But in the other class where we're going to be using testing for diagnosis, we're going to compare their intelligence to how they did on reading. And the reason we can do that is that the scores in every one of these tests are put into this mold. And so that the range of scores is the same for every test. So this blue in the middle is the average, okay? 68% of the people, 68% of the scores on these tests fall between 85 and 115. 34% are, in the lower half of the average, okay? Then another 14% are down here below average. Another 14% are up here in the orange. Can you see where my mouse is pointing? Probably not. Can you guys see my mouse? Yes? Okay, good. That's nice to know. So actually, 95% of the people in the world fall in this average range, this like kind of extended average range, okay? And so anybody who is in this average range, the 70 to 130, that's considered, and we can also talk about it as intelligence. An IQ of 70 is the cutoff point for your intellectually disabled. 130 is your cutoff point for gifted. But 95% of the people, which is going to be almost everybody in your classroom, their intelligence is going to fall in this average range, right? Then 2% are below, then 1/10 of 1% are way out there. So this would be mildly intellectually disabled. This would be extremely disabled. This would be moderately gifted. This would be highly gifted, okay? And so we're going to use that. So you're going to say, so if you have an IQ of 100, which is you're perfect, you're exactly where you ought to be, your math scores ought to be right around 100, because your ability in math ought to match your intelligence. If it doesn't, then that's where we discover that you have, that's why we would say you had a math disability, because what you're able to do in math doesn't match what you ought to be able to do based on your intelligence. So if you had an IQ of 100 and you got a score on the key math test of 68, okay, that's, every one of these lines is called a standard deviation. So from 100 down to 85, if you got an 85, that's one standard deviation away from 100. Does that make sense? So you understand, you get what I'm saying there? Okay. So if you had a score of 68, you would be more than 2 standard deviations off, which is highly significant. So that's another value of this. You can see, like, you might know if their IQ is 100 and they got a 95, is that good or bad? So we use this bell curve again to say, how far off is it? And so that's the value of understanding the bell curve. Okay. Oh, one other thing I'll talk about, we'll talk about it again several times, but what's the difference between a percentile and a percentage? If you're at the 34th percentile, how's that different than you got a 34% on the test? Anybody know?
It's like measuring it out of a group of people. So like you may have ranked 34th out of a whole group of maybe 60 people. And so it gives you more of an estimation about where you would be placed within a specific group for what you're testing for.
Okay. Yeah. 34% is terrible. Okay. 34th percentile. Okay. 34. So in this case, it does not have the percentile on here. Sometimes I do. I don't know this one. But 100 would be the 50th percentile. You're right smack dab in the middle. 50%, 50 people are better than you. 50 people who are worse than you. Okay. If you're at the 34th percentile, you're actually still here in this, you maybe where my arrow is there, down toward the bottom of the blue part, down sort of toward 85. So 34th percentile is not all that bad. In fact, 34th percentile is actually pretty good. You're still right there in that blue average middle range. Okay. But you have to understand that. And then when you're reporting to parents, you have to be able to explain to them, because if they look at the score and they see a 34, they think, oh, that's terrible. Well, 34% is terrible, but 34th percentile falls well within the average range of people. So you need to understand that difference between percent and percentile. The parents you're talking to won't, for the most part. So you have to be able to explain it. All right, so we hit a little bit of that, so give us a little bit less to talk about on next Tuesday. All right, so any questions on what you need to do for next Tuesday, where we're meeting, anything that you don't know? Everybody's good. Okay. All right. Well, if that being the case, I am going to stop share and say goodbye. And next Tuesday, I almost for sure go all the way to 2:30, because we're going to have to do a little bit of catch up on some of the stuff we couldn't do because of this. And so far the weather is fine, so we actually could have made it, but I don't know. Okay. All right. I'm going to say goodbye then, if nobody has anything to say. All right. See you guys Tuesday. I'll see some of you on Thursday in class this week. Okay. All right. Bye.